Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear and see me well. So welcome to this event, which is the Introduction to Paramedic Science at St George's, University of London. My name is Lanisha. I'm the events officer here, and I'm going to be the host for the event today. So during this event, you will be able to hear and see all of the presenters, but we won't be able to hear or see you. So to communicate with us, you could type questions in through the chat box function. So any questions you have from now until the end of the event, please do send them in to the chat box. And we have staff here and current students to answer your questions. So the format of this event, we will start with a video from the student support team. And so you'll hear a bit about finance, accommodation, and student support here at St George's. And the video lasts approximately 15 minutes. Following that video, you will hear from an academic from the course, and they will give you an overview of the Paramedic Science course at St George's. After that overview, we will have a live student panel, so you will get to hear from 3 current students on the course of their experience of studying here at St George's. And then we will finish off the event with a live Q&A. So questions that you guys have sent in that haven't yet been answered, or questions that you guys sent in when you registered, we will use those in the live Q&A and answer them for you live on air. And also, if you have questions at that time, you can also send them in too, and we will answer them live on air. And then to finish off, we will repeat the student support video just for anyone that has started late. So at that time, you can leave if you've already watched the event. So just to say, if for whatever reason your connection cuts out, please do try and log back in. We will still be here up until 5:15. If for whatever reason you're unable to log back in, this event is being recorded, and we will put this recording on our website on the webinars page. But as registrants of the event, I think you will also be sent a link directly from GoToWebinar, so you can access the recording yourself. If for whatever reason my link cuts out, I will try my best to log back in. Otherwise, I have colleagues also logged in who will be able to take over in that case. Finally, before we get started, once this event has finished, there will be a survey that will pop up on your screen. And I'd be very grateful if you could take a few minutes out just to fill out the survey, just to give us a bit of feedback about this event, just so we know how we can improve future events. Okay, so thank you all for listening to me open this event, and I will now play the student support video. Just one moment.
Hello everyone, my name's Gavin Taylor and I'm the Head of Student Services here at St George's. Today I'm going to talk to you about some of the support services that we have for students here at St George's. Many of the services we offer are badged under our Student Centre or Student Life Centre banners, and these include things like health, well-being, learning support, finance and accommodation services. Let's have a look at each of those in turn, and I'll give you some highlights of each of the services as we go through. So the first place to start is health. And let's talk about occupational health. Now, the occupational health team are there to ensure that students and staff are fit to undertake their work or their study alongside patients. And they're the ones in the application process who will ask you for reports about your health and will undertake tests and vaccinate you as necessary. OH are also there to make sure that any health conditions that might affect patient safety are appropriately managed. So they don't vanish on day one of your course. They're with you all the way through and all the way through your career, in fact, to make sure that you are healthy and okay and all right to work with patients. Now, universities will take a variety of different approaches to supporting the health of their students. You may find if you've been looking at large campus universities, they've got a health centre there on campus. At St George's, because we're an urban university, we work closely with our local GPs, and there are about 20 of them within about a kilometre of the St George's campus, to ensure that everyone has access to all the services that they need. Most of the local surgeries will actually come onto campus for our Freshers' Fair in your first week, and they'll get everybody signed up there and accessing their services as they go through. That's how we approach your health while we're studying. Moving on to look at student well-being. So the place to start with this one is your personal tutor. So every student at St George's is assigned a personal tutor from the very first day. Now, tutors have an academic role. They'll be giving you some of your assessments while you're in study. They also have a very strong pastoral one, so they're there to make sure that you're okay and succeeding and doing your very best right the way through. And that's a big strength of the size of St George's. Our small size lets us offer that to everybody, and I think it's a real strength of what we do. Now, as well as your tutor and as well as the specialist staff on my team in the Student Life Centre, St George's has a very large, for our size, and very well-used counselling service, as well as a psychiatrist in-house to support students' mental health. We've also got a thriving faith community for a science-based university, and a chaplaincy that looks after both the university staff and students and the staff at the NHS Trust as well. And we work closely with our students' union in all kinds of different things, from faith right the way through to all the different activities that they offer, to make sure that there's a comprehensive network of support within the SU and the university and the trust next door, and all the way through all around our students while they're studying with us. From Wellbeing, let's have a look at some of the learning support that's on offer. So again, universities will have different approaches to writing and study skills support, but all of them will have some. Here at George's, we operate an academic success center, and that's led by 3 senior lecturers who are there to really make sure that every student at St George's does as well academically as they possibly can. That includes all kinds of different things, from English as a second language support through writing skills, and even A-level refresher catch-up sessions for our graduate entry students. So if you're feeling a bit rusty in the chemistry or the stats, they'll get you back up to speed when you start with us at George's. We also believe that we've got an ethical as well as a legal obligation to support disabled students. Now, I do get approached from time to time with students concerned that their disability may be a barrier to them taking up their place in a healthcare profession. So just to say from the outset, there are very few, if any, barriers to disabled people entering the healthcare profession. There's really no barrier there. And our aim is to ensure that our support is just as rounded as possible to make sure that everybody is supported. And that includes the academic dimension as well as the clinical placements and other things that you'll be doing, as well as all the stuff that surrounds those things, like your housing and other things as well. Now, it is worth just saying that talking to us early, if you're disabled, really does help us make sure that everything is in place to start supporting you from the very beginning of your studies. It can take a while to get everything up and running and in place that you need. So please do talk to us nice and early so we can make sure that everything is up and running and going. Now, it's also worth just saying that some students, about 50% of people with a specific learning difficulty, find that out at university. And so we offer free assessments to all students and free specialist support as well, if that's the situation that you might find yourself in. So let's have a look at finance. So I guess the first thing that I'd like to say here is really just to reassure you, there are 2.5 million university students in the UK at the moment. Now, these are folk who are on the same financial footing as you will be when you are studying. The amounts of money involved in higher education at the moment are daunting. Student loans are large, fees look big. And there's a lot to think about, but just remember there are 2.5 million people who are managing okay on it. It's not necessarily an easy thing, but it is a thing that people can do, and you can do it too, and we are here to help you do it. So just some things to keep in mind. UK tuition fees are currently £9,250. They are largely set by Parliament. Will we see things change in the next few years before you start? That's a possibility. And we'll communicate that all the way through. But just for the moment, the data we've got 9250. Maximum maintenance loan. So this is for UK students who are living away from the family home in London. The maximum amount you can get in a loan from Student Finance England is £12,382 per year. And also just to note that students who are undertaking training towards allied health professions, so physiotherapy, radiography, paramedic science, and indeed our colleagues doing midwifery and nursing, they're also eligible for a bursary from the NHS of £5,000 per academic year as well. Now, if you're taking out a student loan, there are no upfront costs for attending university. So the Student Finance England or the Scottish equivalent or the Welsh equivalent or the Northern Irish equivalent will pay for your fees. And everybody is guaranteed to receive that loan if they apply for it. So if you're a UK student and it's your first degree, if you're not taking a degree, an undergraduate degree for the second time, you are eligible to have it funded by government. Now, the loans that you take out, both for your tuition fees and for your maintenance costs, become repayable after graduation once you're earning more than £27,000 per year. Also, just to note that tuition fee and maintenance support is available for all of the programs at St George's, including graduate entry pre-registration courses. Now, you may have heard that, indeed I've just said, that there are limited funds for people who are doing a second undergraduate degree. Now, just to note that for MBBS 4, for the graduate entry medicine program at George's, and the MSc physiotherapy program, they are exceptions to that rule. So those courses are fully funded from a variety of different means for your studies for the years that you're in. So do bear that in mind. Also, just to add, hardship funds are available for all students. We've got a pot of money aside for students who find themselves in unexpected difficulty while they're studying, as will most places. If you find yourself in financial difficulty at any point, do just get in touch and we can help. Now, there are some things that you can start doing now. So I think we're quite early in the application process as I'm talking to you today. So there are some things to get underway with. I think the most important one of those is to get a budget together for your tuition and maintenance costs and for the amount of money that you might have coming in. Now, there are some great budgeting tools and some finance calculators available online to help you do that. You can find those by checking our website. We'll point you at the various calculators, or the NHS one, or the Student Finance England one, or just Google them. There are loads of things out there, and you can work out within about 20 minutes of online searching just how much you're likely to have as income and how much you're likely to spend as a student living in London, and let you work yourself out a budget for the years that you'll be in study. It's really important to do that. It's also a really good idea to look at other sources of funding beyond Student Finance England or the NHS. There are a huge number of trusts and charities and other organizations that are there to support students in higher education, especially those students that are doing healthcare courses. So do get out and have a look for those as well. And then lastly, a quick look at accommodation. So things to know there. Most undergraduate students, certainly at St George's, live in halls of residence with us in year one and then move out into private accommodation nearby in subsequent years. That's the typical pattern. We own our own halls of residence, Horton Halls. It's about a mile away from the university main campus, and it houses 480 students. That's about 80% of our first year intake who live in halls of residence with us. Now, we guarantee places in halls to our international students, disabled students, and students with other welfare needs. We prioritize places for all other first-year students. That includes graduate entry medics, that includes master's physician associate students, that includes MSc physiotherapy students. We have great thriving communities of our graduate entry and postgrad students in halls as well. Our halls is for everyone. Similarly, we don't prioritize places based on postcode or distance from campus. So we are looking for folk who want to get away and have a moving out of home, campus-based university experience, even if they live in London already. We're here for you. In terms of rent, to note, we benchmark our rents against local private housing as well as other halls of residence. There's been a great boom in the recent years of private companies coming into the student residential sector that has driven prices up. What we do is we make sure that we benchmark against what housing actually costs in our local area, not just what housing costs look like in higher education. And we keep our rents firmly under control that way. I'd never argue seriously to anybody that staying in halls of residence, even with us, was an inexpensive option. But I would argue, looking against local rents, we certainly are a less expensive option in a lot of cases. And halls is an extension of our student services team and is a central part of what we do as a welfare provision. So we really are there to support everybody to move in, start university, have a great time, really get underway with your studies, and really get you off on the right foot in terms of university and on into your future career. So it's a big part of what we do. And I think Halls is a really terrific opportunity and a really excellent thing to do in your first year. So that's largely it from me. We've got some of my colleagues who are in the chat already for this webinar, so you can dive in and ask them questions. If you've got anything else that you'd like to know, you can contact us through the inquiries team. They'll pass on any individual or complex questions, and we're very, very happy to answer them. So please just ask us. And a slight bonus for me, I'm aware sometimes that we don't just have future students looking at this, but we also have mums and dads looking at this as well. So if you're a mum and dad watching, or you want to let them know a few things if they're concerned, here are a few things that I'd like them to know as well. So the first of that is George's is one of the safest campuses in London per the Metropolitan Police stats. We are a very safe place. We're in a very, very safe part of a big city. Students don't behave as you'd imagine is another thing I'd like you to know. Our students typically, as are many university students, our students typically are in employment. They are typically involved in community activities. The local community is usually very pleased to see our students coming rather than the opposite. They really are a huge boon to the local area. And so our students are not as students might normally be perceived to be. Universities, and George's included, will offer support and training to new students and don't pull any punches. We do anti-racism training in our first week. We do anti-sexual violence training in our first week. We don't pull any punches about what our community is about or what sort of profession that folks are trying to get into. So that will happen in the first week to keep everybody safe, to introduce them to community and really get them thinking about what's going to come ahead. We usually can't talk to you without the student directly requesting. And lastly, having the talk, and I don't mean that talk, I mean a talk about finances is hugely invaluable and really, really is probably the best thing that you can do for a student before they get off to university. Anyway, that's my time. Thank you very much for listening to me today. Again, there are folk available for questions in the chat, and we're available really from now until you start and right the way through if you've got to ask us. My name's Gavin Taylor. Thank you very much for coming to see us today online, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Hi, everybody. I hope you found that video useful. We do have members from the student support services here. So if you have any questions about accommodation, finance, anything, then please do send those in and we have staff available to respond to those. Okay, so now we're on to the next section of this event where you're going to hear from an academic who will give you an overview of the course. So can I please invite Paul to join us on screen? Hi, Paul.
Good afternoon, everyone. Right, 2 seconds while I get the PowerPoint up. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. Firstly, thank you for taking the time today to come and join our webinar to find out all about paramedic science. Hopefully by the end of my presentation, I might have persuaded you to put an application in, who knows. So who am I? Well, my name's Paul Joyce. I'm a senior lecturer in the department, and one of my remits is admissions. So I deal with all the admission side of things for the course. So you're probably wondering why put an application in St George's? What's so special about St George's University? Well, if you've done your research, you'll probably know that it's probably, I think it's the second longest running medical clinical teaching institution in the country. I think it's been around since early 1700s. Although let me just have a quick check. Yep, we moved to Tooting in 1980. What else? It's the only university in the UK to specialise in healthcare medicine. When you think about the number of universities in the country, you know, that's quite a an impressive fact, to be honest. So Centre for Allied Health, the Department of Paramedic Science sits in the Centre for Allied Health, which, bear with me on this now, it's part of the joint faculty with Kingston University and St George's University of London. However, if you've looked at the website, you will see that the two universities are in the process of closing down that partnership, and the Department of Paramedic Science will sit inside St George's University of London. It has no effect on students, the change. It's just it'll be a difference for staff, but for students, no change whatsoever. So the Department of Paramedic Science, what can we tell you about that? Well, I'd be biased if I said it's probably the best paramedic department in the country. Of course, I would say that. But what I can say is that our course is probably has the largest recruitment of any paramedic course in the country. We are the largest department in terms of student numbers across the board. So that's something to think about. We're very, very proud that we have our own dedicated paramedic facilities, something what we call our Paramedic Clinical Simulation Centre, and that's down in the Jenner basement. Sorry, my screen went a bit blank there, so I think we've oh, technology, don't you just love it? Okay, yeah, so we have our own dedicated facilities. Within the simulation center, we have something called the Skills Lab. And basically, this is where we're going to teach you all those little bits and bobs of skills that you need to know, all those bits of equipment that you need to know. So we'll teach you where to stick things into people, where to prod people, where to put tubes into people, how to draw blood, how to resuscitate, how to do CPR. 101 myriad of skills that you'll need to know as a paramedic, you get taught in the Skills Lab. Once you've been taught the skills, you will then go into something what we call the simulation suite. One half of the simulation suite consists of 2 backs of ambulances. And the beauty of this is...
sorry to interrupt you, it's Lanisha here. I just wanted to say that for us, the slides don't seem to be changing. We're still on the very first slide.
Oh, right, okay. I beg your pardon.
No worries at all. Thank you, that's so much better. Thank you, Paul.
Right, I'll quickly go back then so people can see the slides.
And Paul, while you're quickly going back, just to let you know, it's Chris Baker here. I'm in. I can finally see you and hear you.
Great. Right, where were we? Right, so hopefully now everyone can see what's going on. So I've already talked about Specialist Health University in the country, the only one of its kind. I've talked about the Centre for Allied Health. Within that centre, you will find they've bundled all the clinical courses. So you'll be bumping heads with radiographers, I can't think of what other ones are. Chris, what other courses?
Radiography, radiotherapy, occupational therapy, and physiotherapy.
Yeah, and the beauty of that is, when you're bumping into these sort of people, we do multidisciplinary activities with them as well. So you could, you'd be doing the whole gambit of clinical healthcare. Talked about the Department of Paramedic Science being the largest one of its kind in the country. And then I quickly told you about how proud we are of our state-of-the-art paramedic facilities, the Clinical Simulation Centre. And then we were just starting to talk about the Skills Lab and showing you examples of some of the bits of kit that you might use. And then I was talking, once you've learned all these sort of skills, you'll then go into what we call our simulation suite, where I was beginning to talk about the backs of ambulances. So on one half of the sim suite, we have 2 backs of ambulances built to the specifications of the ambulances you see out on the road in London. So LAS, London Ambulance Service ambulances. Beauty of this is, as they're kitted out as exact replicas, you get to know where all the bits of kit live, how all the bits of kit work with each other, the space you have to work with each other, getting those lovely trolley beds in and out of ambulances, etc. So when you go out on placement and you go out on the road and you're in the back of an ambulance, you'll remember where all these things are and it won't phase you out at all. The other half of our simulation suite, we have what we call our domicile rooms. So we have purpose-built 3 rooms that replicate rooms in a house. So we have a kitchen, we have a bedroom, we have a bathroom. And the beauty of this is we can set up any scenarios we want in these environments to make it as realistic as possible. So again, when you go out on the road, you might be called to a kitchen incident, or you might be called to a bathroom incident, and you'll have practiced some of these things back in the sim suite. Once you've learned all that and you've done scenarios in the ambulances and the domicile rooms, we then move you into alongside what we call our immersion room. And the beauty of this room is when you walk in, it's like a blank white canvas. Through the wonders of technology, we can portray anything on the walls. So the one on the left, obviously it's a burn scenario that we've got going on. But what you can't see is that that's real life footage of a fire going on, and we've got the sound of the fire going on. We can change the temperature in the room. We can fill the room full of smoke, etc. Just to give you as realistic as possible scenario and simulation. And our idea is we teach you simulation under safe conditions. We never put you at risk at all. And then on the right, again, same room, but again, a different scenario now. This chap had an accident with his lawnmower. So it just shows you some of the options we can do. These 2 simulations you see in front of us are what we call low fidelity simulation. So that's you interacting with other students, staff, and mannequins. We also run high fidelity simulations. Now, don't panic about the chap on the left. I've put this in to highlight what we can do. He's an amputee, but it was brilliant for this simulation where he'd been involved in a motorbike accident and his leg had sheared off. It shows you the level of realism we can bring in, because where we can, we will use role players and actors and actresses to bring a level of realism into the simulation. So you're not just dealing with a dummy or a mannequin. And then the pictures on the right are what we call moulage. I get told off because I just call it fancy makeup. And basically, through the wonders of a bit of props, we can make the most gruesome, realistic injuries possible. And that, again, that just brings a level of realism to the simulation when you can actually physically see the injury rather than just telling you about it. The good thing about this is you get to practice on each other. But what I would always remind you to do is please take it off before you leave, because you don't want to be looked at when you're traveling home on the tube. So the team that will teach you, again, something we're very, very proud of. I think we are, Chris will probably correct me if I'm wrong, we have, in terms of staff, our department has the highest number of practicing clinicians teaching you. And what I've just included here is some of the backgrounds that they come from. HEMS, cycle responders, emergency planners, critical care paramedics, Red Cross, simulation specialists. So it shows you the diverse range of our paramedic teaching staff. And the beauty of this is, as they're practicing clinicians, they'll bring back to the lecture theatre, to the sim suite, to your simulation scenarios, all that knowledge and experience that they've learned and have got out on the road themselves. We have other people as well. So we've got an anaesthetist on board, we have an intensivist, educational technology, because a technologist, because educational technology plays a huge part in our learning these days. We have a senior technician who looks after the sim suite, and as and when we go into other parts of the university, we have an anatomist as well. One of the beauties of having the department in a working hospital is where we can, we will bring in guest lecturers. So you're not just going to be taught by paramedic lecturers, although there's nothing wrong with that. But where we can, and where it suits the modules and the syllabus that's being taught, we will get in experts in their field. And the example I always use is when you're doing obstetrics or learning how to help in birth scenarios, we'll get the midwives in, because what they don't know about helping people, giving birth and that sort of thing, it probably isn't worth knowing. And we'll get other experts in, because mental health is one of our modules. We'll get mental health experts in, end of life, palliative care, etc., etc. So you see, you get the benefit of people who live and breathe these sorts of subject areas. Student support. Again, this is something that we're very, very proud of. And we put a huge emphasis on student support on the course, because being a paramedic student is going to be emotionally and physically hard. You will see things when you're out on placement that you can't really go home and tell your parents about it, or tell your boyfriend, girlfriend, partners, whatever, because they probably just wouldn't understand what you've been through. So we've got a lot of things in place. We were the first department in the country to come up with what we call the Blue Light Champions. So we work with the mental health charity Mind, and for third years who are interested in doing it, we put you through a little training course, and then you become a Blue Light Champion, and you will then be there for the second year, the first years and the second years, like for around exam time, because that's always very stressful. But you've already been there, seen it, done it, and you can help put the students at ease. As I've mentioned, when you're out on the road, you will see things that perhaps you wish you hadn't. So we put a huge emphasis on student resilience and emotional well-being. I always say, the phrase I always use is paramedic students or paramedics are like swans. On the outside, they're cool, calm, and collected, and that's what the public see. But underneath, they might be a bit wobbly every now and again. But that's okay, because the phrase is now it's okay to not be okay. Years ago, you'd probably be told, oh, just get on with your job. What you're complaining about, blah, blah, blah. But these days now, people have realized that it's not just the mental health of the patients, it's the mental health of the clinical professionals as well. So a huge emphasis is put on mental health of you, the students. And alongside that, we have a dedicated pastoral tutor who has a mobile number. I think it's available from 8 in the morning to 6 in the evening. And you can call her whenever you want about anything. And if she can't help you, she'll put you in touch with people who probably can. Also, we're very proud that we've got our own dedicated learning support tutor, because we know that university learning can be a struggle for some people. And there are things in place where we can help you do that. We can get you assessed to see if maybe you have dyslexia and you've never realized. That has happened, and when we give the support is given to the students, you see them blossom. It's amazing. And alongside all the student support that we offer, St. George's has got a huge wealth of support services on campus as well. So there are times when you're going to wish you were on your own, but believe me, we will never let that happen. We will never let you be on your own dealing with anything. I mean, the hardest thing to do is actually to put your hand up and say help. But once you do that, all these support services spring into action. Skills coaches is another thing we do for our third year students. What we found is when you go out on the road, when you go out on placement, you're mentored by paramedics. But there was no actual training to do this. So the department came up with an idea of putting skills coaches on board. So again, third years who are interested, you go on a little course, and then you're there to help the second years and first years and mentor them through. For example, this is a skills session, and the student in the blue polo shirt is a skills coach, and she's helping these students learn skills. And then when you go out on the road and it's your turn to mentor students, you'll have had this practice before, you'll have had the training, you know what to do and how to do it. invaluable skill and knowledge. So admissions criteria, well, if you go on the website, you will see that we accept a huge range of qualifications, but the caveat to that is the most recent ones must have been completed within the last 5 years. When you apply for the course, you will be expected to provide a police DBS check and also an occupational health screening to see that obviously you're physically and mentally capable of doing the degree. Driving licenses. Although there are no driving requirements while you're on the course, we would recommend having a clean driving license for a minimum of 1 year by the time you graduate. Okay, so a clean driving license, minimum 1 year by the time you graduate. And then personal statements. Don't forget these, very, very important when you do your application. That's your chance to tell me, because I read them all, is to tell me why you think you deserve a place on the course. So take your personal statement very, very seriously. So the award, obviously, yeah, it's a BSc Honours Paramedic Science. You'll have seen that we are approved by the HCPC, so the Healthcare Professions Council. No, the Health. What is it? I always get this wrong.
Health and Care Professions Council.
That's the one. I always leave the end out. They are our governing body, so all paramedics who are practicing out on the road should be registered with the HCPC, and that's who we're governed by. Employability, we're very, very proud that within, I'd say, 4 or 5 months after graduation, all our graduates are in some form of employment. And that goes back over the last 5, 6, 7 years now. Something, again, we're very, very proud of.
Paul, can I just say something there, Paul? Just if you don't mind, just to say that when we say 100% of them are in employment 4 to 5 months down, that means as paramedics. And what we're seeing lately, which is fantastic, is we're seeing some of our students starting to go, not everyone is going straight onto an ambulance. We've seen our students graduate and go into primary care roles, into urgent care roles, and into working in GP practices. So it's a really exciting time to graduate and to start to see students going off into different career paths. And also we have a lot of the students who then come back to us and actually start to work with us as what we call our bureau. Sorry, Paul, I just thought I'd interrupt at that point. Back to you, sir.
Okay. And you stole my next sentence, my next statement. Because what I was, I mean, just building on what Chris said there, the last point I've got is our UCAS students, when they graduate, used to be mainly employed by the LAS, the London Ambulance Service. But as Chris has mentioned, we are also now seeing a lot more students go into other clinical opportunities. So not necessarily on the back of an ambulance. As Chris mentioned, you could go into GP surgeries, A&E departments. We've had students go and work in prisons. The one I like, the one I always chuckle at is we once had a student go and work on a cruise ship once they graduated. So the opportunities out there now are very varied and wide. As Chris has mentioned, it's a great time to want to be a paramedic. So as I've already mentioned, the BSc, it's a level 6 award. It's very strong on clinical and vocational elements. It's very, very hands-on. You are not going to be stuck in a lecture theatre for the 3 years of the course. And it's roughly split between 50% on site at university and 50% out on placement. So let's talk about the 50% that you'll spend at university first. The good news is we are now beginning to bring in a more blended way of teaching. So for this year, you will have lectures on site. All our skills sessions are on site, and then you will have some lectures that will be virtual. But we're trying to mix and match as much as we can to get back to our on-site teaching. And then placement, 50% of the course is placement. And what that means is you will have 3 blocks of placement per year on the course. And the way that the year is split up, you'll have a block at university, followed by a block on placement, followed by back at university, then on placement. You get the drift. So 3 blocks of everything per year. So how do we teach? How are you going to learn? Well, it's all the usual things. So when we talk about face-to-face, there'll be lectures, group work. I've already mentioned the skills and simulation. But one of the perks of being in a teaching hospital is we also have access, I think we're probably one of the only courses in the country that has this, to a dissection room and pathology museum. Now, the dissection room is amazing in a morbid sort of way, because don't get me wrong, there are some amazing textbooks out there and videos, etc., showing the human body and anatomy. But when you see that cadaver in front of you, it's just like a light bulb moment. You'll go, oh, really? I never. You get my meaning. It is an amazing experience to go into the dissection room. And then the pathology museum. Again, I could spend hours in here. It's amazing. Basically, they have preserved specimens of almost every disease you can think of, and probably quite a few you never even heard of. Alongside that, they have healthy specimens as well. So you can see the way certain diseases affect human organs in the human body. Again, it's very, very useful to have that sort of knowledge on board. And as I mentioned, we also do a lot of online teaching as well through our VLE, our virtual learning environment. We use a software called Canvas. Very, very easy to do, and we love it. So sometimes you will have pre-recorded lectures to watch, and then the lecture will ask you to come online and you'll discuss things. A lot of the modules have what we call revision MCQs, so multiple choice quizzes, where you can test yourself on what you've learned and what you haven't learned. All the learning materials, all the presentations are put online, so you can download them before the actual session, have a read through, see what you know, see what you don't. And then we also do live online classrooms as well, either through Microsoft Teams or something that we call Big Blue Button via Canvas. I've already mentioned placements. Currently, they sit at 525 hours per year. So you can see that's quite a huge chunk of time that you'll be out on placement. And in terms of placements, it's not just on the back of an ambulance. The first years have just gone out now for their first 2-week placement, and they're in hospital wards. You'll then have, I think it's the equivalent of about 10 weeks on the back of an ambulance. And then I'll talk about it a little bit later, a variety of other clinical placements. So this is the program. So level 4, level 5, level 6, or year 1, year 2, year 3. I term level 4 or year 1 as our basics year. Because if you think about it, you're joining the course and you all come from a huge variety of educational backgrounds. And somehow we have to get you all to the same level playing field. That's what we use year 1 for, or level 4. And then level 5, we consolidate that knowledge and you'll go into a bit more depth. And then level 6 is where you put that all into practice, ready for when you go out and graduate and you're out on the road. I should mention that the course is up for revalidation in the next year. So some of these module names might be tweaked to make them more appropriate, and some of the content might be tweaked, but you'll still get 4 modules every year. As I mentioned, placements. I mentioned that you get approximately 10 weeks for the LAS in the back of an ambulance. And I also mentioned there were other clinical opportunities. So as I said, the first years are now just out on hospital wards for 2 weeks. You will have, by the time you finish the course, you'll have had a variety of clinical placements, which gives you an insight into the opportunities that are out there for paramedics. So gone are the days when you are just going to be driving driving an ambulance. And as Chris mentioned earlier, that there's a growing wealth of clinical opportunities out there now. Something we're hoping to get back on board again once things are settled down, re the pandemic, is what we call interagency training. So basically, if you think about paramedics, when you go out on the road, you will interact with other emergency services. So what we've done is we've set up how can I describe it? We set up simulation days with these other services. So for example, the one you've seen at the moment was with the fire brigade. and the students who went there for the day learned how to extricate patients out of crashed cars. And believe me, that car on the right apparently had a roof on at the beginning of the day. I think you can just about see how broadly smiling the students are, because they loved that day. But we also have other ones. So the one on the left was a training day with the police force, and they're learning how to get into locked doors. I'm not sure that student with the battering ram should be smiling that broadly. And then on the right, we're very, very lucky that the London Transport system has a closed platform at Charing Cross, where we do a lot of simulation alongside British Transport. And the beauty of that is, beauty of all this training is you're learning in real life environments, but under simulation conditions. So it's always safe. You always have people on board looking after you. But the beauty of this simulation is when you actually do it yourself out on the road, you'll think back and you go, oh yeah, what did I do on that day? What did I do when there was a patient collapsed on that platform? You know, et cetera, et cetera. So the feedback that we have from the students about these days is they find them amazing, and they just want more and more of them. So why come to London? Why come to George's? Well, think about it. In terms of London being perhaps one of the most cosmopolitan capital cities of the world. So think about what you will see in any one shift, any 1 week, as when you're on placement. So no offence to places like the Outer Hebrides or the Scotch Highlands or Yorkshire. I'm sure they're very, very nice places. But what you'll see in London probably would take you weeks to see it anywhere else in the country. Think about the languages that are spoken in London. You will get called to a job where English is not the first language. How are you going to cope with that? You think about the population numbers we have in London. I think during the week when people are working, we have something like 7 or 8 million people. Goes down at the weekends, obviously, with people not being in London. But you see, it's a very dynamic population where anything can happen. First job of your shift, it could be someone's collapsed at a shopping precinct. Second job, it could be a car crash. Third job of the day could be helping a birth somewhere. But what we should say is it's not all blue light, flashing your blue lights and driving really fast. There are other challenges and benefits to being a paramedic. For example, you go to that high-rise block of flats, and you go and chat to an old age pensioner who hasn't seen anyone for days, and all they want is that little bit of comfort, a little bit of chat, make them a cup of tea, and you'll see the gratitude in their eyes. And those sort of jobs is just you'll find what can I say? You'll find I would say enjoyment, but not enjoyment, but the benefit from those sort of jobs just as much as the blue light jobs. As Chris mentioned, and I've touched upon it, you're no longer just an ambulance driver. So what I've done with this slide, I've just put together a few images of the sort of roles that you could expect or might want to follow once you've graduated. You could become a 111 call person, so working on the 111 switchboards. Obviously, the one that everyone loves to know about is the HEMS, the London Ambulance Service, helicopter air service, the first and the best one of its kind in the country, and dare I say in the world. If you get seconded onto London HEMS, you're seen to be a paramedic at the top of your game. It's a very prestigious secondment to get, and we've currently got one of our lecturers out in secondment at the moment on HEMS, which is I think we've got 3 or 4 others who've been on HEMS as well. So again, just shows you the quality of teaching staff that you will come into contact with when you come to St George's. We've already mentioned going into other clinical settings, not just the LAS, so walk-in centres, GP surgeries, etc. Bike responders. You could be a CCP, so a critical care paramedic. Alongside, obviously I've got a picture of the ambulance, there will be times when you're doing patient transfers. So it just shows you the wealth of opportunity that is now out there once you've graduated as a paramedic. So we've had to put a few changes in place due to the pandemic. Interviews are no longer done on site. So you'll probably be told about this later on. We do recorded multiple mini interviews now, which you record, you send them in to us, and then that's how we assess you. I've touched upon blended learning. At the beginning of the pandemic, all lectures were online. So now, as I said, we're now bringing back a mixture of online lectures to on-site lectures as well, where we can. Risk assessments, there's risk assessments done for, this is probably for the parents who might be listening. All rooms have been risk assessed in terms of student numbers and on how many can be in the room at any one time. All placements have been risk assessed. So we never put students in danger whatsoever. And one of the effects of the pandemic is where we are very strong on use of PPE, so personal protection equipment. So for all lectures, we advise students to wear face masks. Simulation, they will wear full PPE, so that's gowns, masks, gloves. And again, this is exactly the same out on placement. And when they go out on placement as well, the LAS, when they first go out, the LAS will fit them with proper face masks as well, as part of their equipment that they use out on the road. So everything has been risk assessed as safely as possible. And as I say, students will never be put into an environment where they're in danger at all. So here's just a few general emails. You probably know about admissions, but there's the one in the middle is me. So p.joyce@sgul.kingston.ac.uk. If you have any queries about the course, please feel free to email me. If I can't answer them, I'll probably know someone who can. And then the last one at the bottom, if you hadn't been online already, on our website, on the St. George's website, there was a huge wealth of information in terms of the course, the highlights of the course info, what you can expect about being a student at St. George's, etc. Please spend some time going through it. It's a huge wealth of information there. And that's it for me. I mean, that was just a whirlwind guide to coming to St. George's, the paramedic course, why you should come here, why we're proud of our course, etc., etc. What you can expect when you're out on placement, what you can expect when you graduate, why being a student in London is amazing. Because don't forget, of course, we want you to study 24 hours a day, but you do need some downtime, and that's where having a campus in Tooting is amazing, and some of the students will tell you all about this anyway. So I hope you found that interesting. Interesting enough to put an application into the course, and hopefully we'll see you in September, September 2022. Okay, so that's me done.
Thank you very much for that, Paul. That was very, very insightful, and I'm sure our audience agree too. So Paul will be joining us again shortly for our live Q&A. But for now, we're going to hear from our current students. So could I please ask our students to join us on air? Hi, Misha. Hi, Harry. Hi, Liv. Okay, so these are our current paramedic science students, and they're each going to talk to you for approximately 3, 4, 5 minutes about their own experiences here at St. George's. Okay, so I think I will hand over first to Harry.
Lovely. Can you hear me? Can I be heard? I think you can hear me. Yeah, cool, lovely. All right, hi guys, my name's Harry, and as Lanish just said, I'm one of the second-year student paramedics here at George's. You guys have had loads and loads of questions, so I hope they've been answered. But obviously, these guys will keep an eye on the chat whilst I'm chatting away. So yeah, here's a little slide I've put together about me at uni. Some things I think are quite important. There's a picture there of me on placement, go to loads of different kinds of patients all the time. I actually did this job with Liv. Liv, who sat there, we went to this patient together, that she was there on a car. and then we went on an ambulance, and they had like 1 million cats, and they had snakes and rabbits. They literally had so many animals. So you get to work sometimes with other students as well. I think that's the main point of that picture being there. Like Liv was there on an ambulance car, and then we turned up on an ambulance. So you get to end up working with your peers quite often. Obviously I've got a cheeky little COVID picture there. Had to put that in there with my full kit and everything like that. I'm going to a COVID patient. But one of the pictures I think is the most important is this one where I don't think you can see my mouse, but sort of the one at the fun fair. I think, as Paul was just saying, I think it's massively important to be able to have fun as well. I remember Gavin Taylor, the gent who did the presentation at the start, talking before to us in the first year about some people get the George's fear, and the George's fear is essentially where you end up working so hard that you actually get scared and fearful of doing anything that's not work. And I think that's really not dangerous, but I think you have to have some time for yourself, because you won't do well if you don't. For every 4 hours of revision you do, you need to have an hour with your friends and go out. And this fair is in Clapham Common, and it's literally always there. It's super cheap. Monday's half price. We just end up just going out to the fair with some friends, or going in central London. You have to have a social life. If you don't have a social life, then you don't have anything really. And Tooting's amazing for a social life. I'll never let go of this, but Tooting was voted one of the best places to live by Lonely Planet about 3 years ago in the whole world. And I still tell everyone that, every single one of my friends and family. I'm like, well, Tooting was there. I think it's just such a flex. But yeah, I'm sure Liv and Misha will chat to you loads about other things. I don't know how I'm doing for time, Lanisha. I can talk for a little bit longer if you want. I think I've got a couple of minutes. But yeah, so and obviously there's a little picture there of an ambulance as well, because I work out of St Helier with both of Misha and Liv. Actually, we both work out of St Helier, and so all three of us are out of St Helier. That's right, South London, like basically the Surrey border. And so we don't really spend much time in central London. Some of the people who work out of Waterloo on placement, they end up in central London quite a lot. So this was a picture where we did a patient transfer from St Helier Hospital into St Bartholomew's. It's like central London. So I think we did a little bit of sightseeing whilst we were there, because we don't usually get an ambulance into central London. So I think we took a few selfies and a few pictures. So yeah, you see the capital a lot, all times of the day. You see lots of different kinds of people. Yeah, so exciting being in London. My cousin, she's a paramedic, and she trained at a university which is sort of in a bit more of a quiet area, and she spent a lot of time in the countryside. They'd have some days where they didn't have a job all day. They had 2 patients a day. We don't get that here. I can promise you that we don't get that here. I think Misha was on a night shift last night or the night before, and I think it was just mayhem. So but it's good. It's the best way to learn, I think. But yeah, I think I've definitely done enough talking now. I think I've definitely gone over my time, but yeah, really hope you guys come to George's. It's brilliant. I'm not just saying that because I have to. It is good. And yeah, keep asking your questions, guys, because we will answer them the best we can, or someone will answer them. We're trying our best to keep up with them all. But yeah, I think I'll let you pass on to someone else now. I think it's Liv. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Liv. I'm also a Paramedic Science Year 2 student. I come from Burnley, which I don't know whether anyone knows where that is, but it's north of Manchester. I decided to come to St George's because, firstly, it's very far away from Burnley, but also when I visited the uni on my interview, the equipment that you see there is just absolutely amazing compared to any other uni that you go to. It's just amazing. And then also the fact that the whole team are paramedics, and they're working as well as teaching you. It's really cool to be able to learn from paramedics who are actually on the job. As well, I really enjoyed the interview. I know that sounds a bit weird, but it was really well-rounded, and I just think it was really good to be able to get the most out of you as a student. You could tell that they know what they're looking for, they know what they need from students. So yeah, that was really good. As you can see on my PowerPoint slide, so me holding the snake, working really hard on placement, is from the same job that Harry spoke about. It was a cardiac job, but the man was all right, so we got to play around with some snakes for a bit, which was really fun. But it just shows the variety that you get on placement. As Harry said, you get to see so many different people. You interact with people of all ages, all levels, all jobs. Yeah, it's just amazing. So the best part for me is definitely placement. It cemented the fact that I want to be a paramedic. This is the career that I want to do. And I think it's the same for everyone. You know, as soon as you go on placement, you just really know this is the career for you. Another thing that I really enjoy is sim. Sim is absolutely amazing. The equipment that they've got means that they can set up scenarios that are so realistic. It makes it, you know, it gives you a place where you can make mistakes but not kill people, which is quite nice. But yeah, sim is really good, and I don't think there's any other unis that do paramedic science that have the equipment that we have. So as Paul said, we've got the immersion suite, which you can see on my slide as well, with the fire. And we've got all the equipment that they use on the ambulance as well, so you get to rummage through the bags, get a feel for where everything is. So then when you're actually on placement, you're not as scared to try and find equipment in the bag, which I think is really good. The thing that most surprised me about being at St George's was when you get on placement, the amount of responsibility you have straight away. It's not a scary amount, it's just, you know, you're part of a team straight away, you are part of that crew, and they look after you so much. But also, you know, you go into those jobs, you're going to people's houses and you are there to help them, and people do look at you and they respect you as a student paramedic, which is really nice. In terms of COVID, teaching did change a little bit. So in our first year, all of our lectures were online, but sim still went ahead, which was the most important part for me because that's my favourite part. But now it's changed a little bit. So we have 50-50. We have 50% lectures online and 50% lectures on site. But there's also the option to do the lectures online if you live further away or you can't come in because you're isolating or anything like that, which is really good. All the lectures are recorded, very handy for if you need to go over them again. And then obviously we've got changes during placement as well. You've got to wear masks, lots more PPE than you usually wear. So say if you go into a cardiac arrest, the amount of PPE you have to wear is absolutely crazy. But obviously it's there to protect you and you need to do it. You do, however, look a bit like you're going into a war zone, which is interesting. During COVID though, the societies really stepped up to make sure that everyone stayed connected. There's so many different societies at George's, like any sport that you want to do, there's a society for it. Anything you're interested in, any type of theatre. Yeah, I joined as many societies as I could because it's literally the best way to make friends. Also lived in halls, all of us have lived in halls, and you make so many friends. And living in halls during COVID was hard, but also made you really close with all of your flatmates, so that was quite nice. And societies carried on doing socials online as much as they could, or sometimes they formed bubbles so people could still go out, which was quite nice. For placement, for my first placement, I was on a stroke unit in St George's. That was really interesting because you got to follow the patients right from ED all the way to the ward that I was working on, through treatment, and then see that the end of it, which is quite nice because hospital placements show you the other end of your patient's journey. So obviously we pick patients up, treat them, drop them off at hospital, and we never really get to see further than that. So it was quite nice to be on hospital placement and, you know, see that other side, which was really good. And then yeah, I'm at St Helier like the other two, which is a great station if you ever get posted there. But yeah, I just think George's is a really good uni. It's the best uni for this course. So if you want to do this course, there's not really anywhere else you should go. Come to George's.
So, sorry. So my name is Misha. I'm also, like these two, a second-year paramed. I'm from Essex. I'm not going to bore you where that's from. Obviously, everyone knows where Essex is because of Towie. So, like these two, I feel like I'm just kind of going to reiterate what these have said already. But I came to George's because of the distance. It was long away from home, and obviously being in London, having the experience of London, it is second to none. And even though we are based out of St Helier and we don't get to go into Central very much, I think people think that working in Central is like completely different. It's really not. You get the same jobs, you get the same people, it's just a completely different area. So as if you're looking at this and you're thinking, oh, I want to be placed in Central, don't worry, because you'll still get the same jobs, you still get really good experience, and you don't need to stress about that. Like Liv said, the facilities here are amazing. I think on my slide here you can see the back of one of the ambulances Paul was talking about. We do actually use those quite a lot when we go into the sim suite, and it is really good because you do get to look at them and you get to know where everything is, and then when you go out on placement you are not shocked by what you see. There's a little picture of us in our uniform. You do get your uniform, so don't worry about that, you get it. And iconic Croydon toilets, you will spend a lot of time at Croydon Hospital if you're in the southwest. You will spend a lot of time at Croydon and George's, so take a nice picture in the mirror. But honestly, I think the best part is probably placement and sim suites. I feel like they are the two things that George's do definitely like shine above everything. When I was looking at universities, I applied late. I was a very late applier, and I wasn't straight out of college, so I had no idea what I was looking for. But when I looked at this compared to other universities in London, but also around the country as well, it was just the facilities, you couldn't get them anywhere else. And like Liv said, having the paramedics and having people that are still working, you could go to your sim session on a Thursday and your lecturer could have done a shift on the weekend, and they come in with the experience and it's relevant to what you're doing. So it is that like up-to-date relevant knowledge that you need and know, and the mentors and the support that you get when you're on placement. Don't be scared. Like, your first day you will probably want to cry, but it is worth it because you see the progress of yourself as well as the progress of everybody else and the patients around you. I'm not going to say too much on that because everyone else has already spoken loads about that, but I would say if you come to George's, it's definitely worth it, but throw yourself in the deep end. Don't just make friends in your flat. Go to George's, make friends, make use of the extra time in the sim suites that you get. The facilities are there and they are good, so definitely use them. And about societies, definitely join a society. I'm part of a society. I'm part of the competing cheer society, so we compete this year. So it's definitely fun. Definitely make time for everything apart from your course. I feel like all of us last year, because of COVID and everything being online, we all kind of fell into that habit of all we did was work or just sit and do lectures on the computer because there wasn't really much else to do. But definitely find that work-life balance and find something that suits you. And living in London and being in that society, it's easy. Like Clapham's 2 or 4 stops away on the tube, and it's such a good nightlife. But I'd say the only challenging thing I found coming to George's was like Liv said, the responsibility that you get straight away. It's nothing to be scared of, but it is very daunting. You go on to placement and you're expected to know things, and if you make a mistake, it's not a problem. But I'd say come to George's, it's definitely worth it. I can't really say anything bad about it really. But that's all from me really.
Thank you so much, guys, for your input, your insight into life at St George's as a paramedic science student. I hope our audience found that information really useful and take a lot from it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into a Q&A session, a live Q&A session. So we will answer any remaining questions that you guys have sent through live, as many as we can. What I will say is any questions that we're unable to respond to due to time, because you guys have sent in a lot of questions, which is really great because it shows you have a real interest, and that's so fine. But if we don't get a chance to go through all the questions, we will email out a response to any remaining questions within the next few days. So all questions will be answered eventually. So before we get started with the Q&A, I'm going to invite Paul to join us on screen. And Chris Baker, if you would like to join us on screen also, then you're welcome to do so.
I'd love to, but I don't seem to be able to use my screen, Lanisha, sadly. So at least I won't be able to scare everyone off.
Okay, well, having your audio, your voice is still fine.
I am definitely here.
Excellent. So we do have quite a lot of questions to go through. So I don't usually say this, but when I'm going to read out the questions for you guys to answer. If we can get straight into the point and leave out all the fluff, then we can kind of get in, as in all the, all the extra stuff. Then we can kind of get through as much questions as possible, so at least our prospective students get their questions answered. So let's see what we have. So I'm going to first fire through a few of the questions that was sent in with the registration forms that I don't think has been answered yet through the presentation or the students' input. Just to make sure that we've got these answered. So first, is this paramedic science course only for home students, or can international students apply also? So maybe that's one for you, Paul.
Okay, yep. The remit is you have to have UK residency to join our course, basically. Chris, excellent. I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, nothing really to add. There are additional fees if you're not a UK national. The issue is more around the ambulance service and the sponsorship side of things. But we have been trying to change that, but without a great deal of success, I'm afraid. So it is still UK students only.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. And we had a lot of questions about the entry requirements for the course. So I think answering this will cover up a lot of those questions. And it was basically, what are the basic entry requirements, which I know, which is on our website as well. It's A-levels, BBC, sorry, is the minimum requirement. But people were asking about what subjects do they need to have? Do they need to have biology if they're applying?
Right. You don't. I mean, obviously, biology would be very, very useful for the course, because you will be studying a lot of human anatomy and physiology, but it's not essential. We do have students who have other science A-levels, not biology. So it is useful. Cool. So you can see 2 of our students don't have A-level biology and they're successful second years. So useful, but not essential.
Awesome. And then we've had quite a few questions for those that are coming in as mature students. What can they apply for this course? Is this course suited to them?
We are seeing year on year now a bigger percentage of mature students applying for the course, and it's just in terms of being a mature student, and obviously you probably have families. It's just a work-life balance and being organised. There is nothing stopping you being successful on the course and being a paramedic graduate.
Excellent.
And I think as well, Paul, the fact that there's now the bursary has made a big difference. So although it might not be huge, the fact that there's additional money there to support students, I think that's helped with mature students. But actually, I think it makes for a really good course if you can have a mix of ages on the course. So yeah, we do really encourage mature students to come and join us.
Definitely. And just picking on what Chris said, if you're not aware, if you're eligible, all paramedic students now can get a £5,000 bursary per year while they're on the course. And that's, dare I say, that's a present, it's not a loan.
That's
okay.
Awesome. Excellent. We've also had quite a lot of questions about placement. So this question will cover up a lot of those, which is, when do placements start?
If you heard my talk, you'll have heard me say that the new first years are actually out on their first placement now. So they'll have 2 weeks in November on hospital wards. And then the next placement block will be in the new year. And you normally finish, I think you finish the year with a placement block as well. Okay. So expect to go out within a few months of starting the course.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And a question for the students. We've had a few questions about accommodation. They've asked where our accommodation is and what is it like?
Do you want me to answer this one?
Sure.
It is a 15-minute walk, maybe like 10 or 15-minute walk from the university entrance, so it's not that far. It depends if you're in standard or premium. I was in premium, and it was really nice. You had a double bed, you had an ensuite, and you had a really large kitchen. They're flats of 8 people, so you'll be sharing with 7 other, I don't know if it's the same as this year, but last year it was with 7 other paramedics, so your flat was the same people on your course. But yeah, no, they are really nice. It's only about a 10-minute walk, and there's a Tesco's opposite, so you don't have to worry about going shopping because there's a shop right next to it. So it's really convenient and not far at all, so don't worry about that.
And I'll just throw out there as well that I was in this, I think Liv was as well. I think you lived below me, didn't you? Yeah, we were both in standard accommodation. To me, it's just as nice. It's a single bed, but it's still an ensuite. You share with 5 other people instead, just because the flat's that little bit smaller. You still have a good sized kitchen, 2 ovens, 2 microwaves, a dishwasher. Yeah, loads of things like that. So yeah, it's not bad.
Excellent, thank you for that. And then somebody asked about working experience. What type of working experience is it best to get before starting? And would work experience like working as a biomedical science engineer for a few years prior to applying be enough?
Right, that's an interesting one. Basically, any work experience is beneficial as long as you can show us why or what you got out of that work experience. It doesn't matter what it is, because if you think about it, paramedics are customer facing, they're public facing. So you could have a job in a pub, you could have a job in a cafe, a restaurant, you know, etc. As well as you could, you know, you could do work experience with the Red Cross or, you know, St. John's, or you could, you know, get experience in a GP. So it doesn't matter what the work experience is, as long as you can relate it to the abilities of being a paramedic.
Excellent, thank you for that. And just one final question from the list of questions that people sent when they registered. Then we'll go to the questions that have been sent in during this event. Are you able to defer after you apply to gain more health-related work experience?
Okay, if yes, basically is the simple answer. If you apply and you're successful and you get given an offer, you can defer that offer for 1 year. So you could defer and start a year later if you're successful at interview.
Can I just throw out there, I did that. I got accepted, got my grades, all that kind of stuff. And I deferred a year, and in that year, sort of did loads of other little bits and bobs, care and healthcare related stuff. And I'd say, for me personally, it helped. But obviously, yeah, it's down to admissions and that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that, guys. So I'm just going to change the ends of our schedule a little bit. So I said at the start that I'll be playing a 15-minute video, which I played at the start of the event, at the end of the event for those that started late. But because we have quite a few questions, I'm going to continue to use this time to respond to questions. As this event is recorded and you can watch it back, those that missed the video at the start, which detailed a bit more about student support, you can catch that in the recording. So I want to use this time just to make sure we get most of your questions answered, okay? So we're going to continue with the live Q&A for the next 10 minutes. Okay, so some more questions now. Is the only way to become a paramedic through studying this course, or are there other routes?
Right, I think Chris will correct me if I'm wrong with this. Health Education England decided that to be a registered paramedic, you need to now have a BSc degree. They've standardised the qualifications across the board, and to become a paramedic, you do now need a BSc degree.
And then just to follow up with that, Paul, you can still go through a vocational route, so you can apply to an ambulance service, but you will then go in at a skill level which is the equivalent to what we would have known as ambulance technician. There's various titles for that across the country, and you would then need to get onto the apprenticeship program. and that's a very different conversation. But there is still the possibility to gain a degree through that pathway. But to register as a paramedic now, you must be graduating with a BSc to be able to do it. So there are different ways to do it, but it depends on your circumstances. Have we lost Lanisha?
I think Lanisha's just dropped out. I was just thinking there is a few questions there we could probably just go through while she's out.
Apologies for that, guys. Sorry, I'm still here. So somebody else has asked, is the paramedic science degree recognised in other countries?
Oh, Chris, do you want to take that one?
The answer is yes. And so what you'll tend to find is you'll even see there's Australian paramedics with degrees who come over here, and our paramedics with degrees who go over to Australia. You'll see our paramedics going over to some areas of Europe. What will tend to happen is there'll normally be processes and assessments that you'll have to undertake. And you'll also find, and one of the things that you'll do as part of the BSc is you'll have a look at care in other countries, certainly at level 6 when you start looking at research. And what you'll see is that there's some different treatment regimes. So you'll have to learn those if you do transfer. But it is very much a transferable degree now.
Excellent, thank you for that. Interesting question here. Somebody has asked, can you get removed from the course?
Simple answer, yes.
Okay, thank you. Another question. Does St George's cover just southwest London, or can we move into southeast London?
Right. Unfortunately, we have to share London with our competitors. So London has been divvied up between all the major universities in the area. So yeah, if you look at London and think of it as a pie or as a clock, our section of the clock is from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Does that make sense? That's our part. So southwest. Where placements are always what can I say, in demand across the board. So there are opportunities sometimes where we can go into other areas of London, but primarily it is southwest London. Oh. I've scared Lanisha off. Okay.
I can't actually see the questions, but if you guys want to, while we're waiting for Lanisha, read the next question. That's
there is a question that's come up a couple of times about, Paul can probably answer this. Is there a physical health assessment to get onto the, I think you covered this with the occupational health, but
yeah. There is no actual like physical test itself. It all comes under the remit of occupational health. So if once you're successful, in terms of your application, you will have to go and have an occupational health appointment where they'll run through a variety of tests to see that you're capable of doing the degree. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to fail anyone. That question about can you be asked to leave the course, we go through hoops trying not to let that happen to any student. So so the whole purpose around, don't be scared about having to do an occupational health appointment. It's just so that it's ease of mind for yourself and for us that physically and mentally you're going to be able to do the degree.
And do you mind if I just come in, Paul? And what I'd say is just have a think, because for these guys, our students that are here now that are on placements, I'm sure they'll tell you that placement can be very tiring. If you are on shift, you might be doing, they generally tend to be 12-hour shifts. So if for us to ask you to come on as a student, you might well be doing 3 or 4 12-hour shifts in a row when you go out on placement during the course of a week. So you need to be realistic about, is that something that you're going to be able to manage? And what we don't want to do is put you into a position that you come on board and then obviously that's something that's very difficult for you. So I just say that. I just say think about what it is that a paramedic actually does, because when you go out on shift, you will be doing exactly what an ambulance crew does. And I don't know if any of the students want to follow up with that.
No, I was just going to quickly pop in and say, so at the minute, we're second years are on placement. We have a 7-week placement block at the minute. I'm on the COVID support line, so that's 4 shifts on, 4 or 5 off. But obviously with the hours that you need, sometimes you have to pick up extra hours as well. So obviously next week I'm doing 2 days on, followed by 3 nights with 3 days off. So if you are not willing to put the hours in, it is really tiring, and it is really you can struggle. I struggle by the 3rd night, not just physically but mentally and emotionally. You do need to be willing and understanding of your emotions, and be willing to be emotionally drained by the end of your shifts. It is worth it, and there are so many positives, but also I feel like we do need to be realistic about what you see on a daily basis, especially if you have a busy shift like I did the other night. Harry was saying I got 3 Cat 1s in a night, and that's a lot to handle without it being in a row of 5 shifts, if that makes sense.
And I think as well, sorry Lanisha, I know there's loads of questions, but just really quickly on that, just to jump on and just say, I think that you've got a lot of, there's obviously a lot of options after you graduate now, but there still remains the fact that in the 3 years you're at uni, you are going to have to be doing ambulance-based placement. So you can think, oh, well, I'm not going to work on ambulances in the future. I want to work in a GP surgery, and you'll be sat behind a desk, you won't do much lifting, etc. But in that meantime, in that 3 years, you are going to have to do it alongside your studying and things like that. So it is a lot. So yeah, I think it's just sort of echoing what Chris was saying, that yeah, even if you don't do it for the rest of your life on an ambulance, you've still got that you've still got that to do in your 3 years here.
And if I may, just to finish off that, taking on board what both Misha and Harry said, and Chris, it's a very hands-on degree. It's very physical. There's a lot of lifting, pushing, pulling. So you need to have some sort of physical fitness, you know, yourself. Even though we don't test you on it, you need to take on board that you will need to be physically fit to be able to do the degree.
Thank you, guys. We had a question about how MMIs work for this course.
Oh, I don't want to give too much away, do I? So MMIs, multiple mini interviews, are the way forward, or have been the way forward for quite a number of years now. And basically what we do, rather than just have a face-to-face interview, we set you 7 or 8 questions for you to answer. And they cover a whole gambit of different situations and scenarios, which by the end of that MMI, we will then have a good, clear vision of whether you're going to be a capable paramedic student or not. It gives us an insight into your personality, your character. Some of the questions you might think are really odd, but the way you answer it, well, I mean, now there are some questions, there are no right or wrong answers. It's how you justify your decision and what you're doing, etc. So I don't want to give too much away, because obviously, you know, but yeah, MMIs are the most fairest way of assessing you in terms of the application process. It's fair on you, it's fair on us. And in terms of the questions, they're not marked by one assessor. Each question is given out to different assessors. So you get a whole variety of people's views, not just one person assessing you. So as I say, it's the fairest way we can use to assess you and your application.
And they're not as scary as they sound, I promise.
They're actually really fun.
Yeah, they're actually really fun. Scenarios, chit chat. Yeah, it's good. It's not bad.
Thank you. And then a question for the students. Maybe everybody can just give a 15-second, why did you, or how did you know you wanted to do paramedic science? Misha, do you want to start us off?
Oh, yeah, I'll go first. I did it because I worked through COVID in a medical setting, and it was like the next best thing. I wanted something that I knew every day you were going to get something different, and I can assure you every day it is very different. You never have 2 days the same.
Harry?
Yeah, I think it's just that element of not knowing what's going to come next. I think that's my favorite part of the job. I'm not sat behind a desk all day. I don't think I could do that. You're out and about, and it's not just day to day, it's job to job. If you do 6-7 jobs in a shift, you don't know what that next job's going to be. When the radio goes off, it could be anything from like someone stubbing their toe or to someone having a baby or in a cardiac arrest. So yeah, the adrenaline pump never goes.
Yeah, I just wanted a career that changes every day and is action-packed and out helping the public. I just love helping people, so definitely the right career for that.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for your input into this event. And I'm sure our audience really took a lot from what you said. I even took a lot from what you said, and I'm not even applying for the course. So thank you so much, Paul. Thank you also, Chris Baker. And thank you to our current students for your input. I hope this event answered all, if not most, of your questions. If there are any questions that you still have after this event, please do email us at study@sgul.ac.uk, and our inquiries team will be able to respond to you. Just a reminder that the application deadline is coming up at the end of January. So please do, get your applications ready to submit on time, and still continue to get as much work experience as you can from now up until your potential interview, because it will all help you in some way. So that's it from us. And just a reminder, this event has been recorded. So as a registrant, I think you get a link from GoToWebinar after this event has finished, but also we will house this recording on our website on the webinars page. I thank you all so much for joining us this evening or afternoon, and look forward to hopefully seeing your applications and maybe yourselves in the near future. Thank you all so much, and yeah, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Take care all.